March 22nd, Pete Noyes. Welcome to 365 Christian Men, where every day we aim to inspire and encourage with real-life stories about men. Pete is a banana farmer in Hawaii. It's not the life he had envisioned for himself back when he was a businessman in Seattle. This is his story.
Even when you think God doesn't see you, you can come to Him for help. On his banana farm in Hawaii, Pete Noyes was hacking away at 10 acres of 9-foot-tall grass with a machete. Hot, tired, and discouraged, Pete hauled back and swung again. The machete hit the stump of a dead banana tree. Putrid liquid spurted from the stump and drenched him with something like a vile banana smoothie, and a horde of insects swarmed him. Beyond miserable, Pete yelled at God, "Do you know who I am?" A voice in Pete's mind said clearly, "Yes." The sudden voice caught him off guard. "Yes?" Too tired to run from the past anymore, Pete remembered back to the day that he felt God had abandoned him. Pete's baby, Justin, had fussed. Colic made him restless. Deborah patted his back as she carried him from their bedroom to the living room so that Pete could sleep. Pete woke to his normal routine: shower, shave, dress for work. He grabbed his keys and his coat and hurried toward the door. He walked past Justin lying peacefully on the sofa, and Pete didn't want to wake Justin, so he didn't stop to kiss him. Another Seattle day dawned. Pete drove the 40 minutes to work, checked messages, shook hands with employees. He placed orders, made phone calls, all routine, until Deborah called. "I think Justin is dead." That's all she said, as she hung up. Pete grabbed his coat and his keys. He ran to the parking lot. "God help me," he said. Pete drove the same route home as always. Everything had changed, but nothing seemed different. Normal stop-and-go rush hour traffic. "God, move these people out of my way." When Pete finally got home, he saw the sheriff's sedans, the coroner's station wagon, and an ambulance, and no people. Pete quickly parked and walked into the chaos. Deborah sat motionless, Justin cradled in her arms, his skin a cold bluish gray. The coroner shook his head and mumbled something about how the baby had stopped breathing. Paramedics packed equipment in bags. "Why doesn't someone help her? Can anyone revive him?" 2 deputies spoke to Deborah. Another deputy approached Pete. "Mr. Noyes?" Pete nodded. "Did you notice anything unusual about your son this morning? Anything odd about your wife's behavior?" The questions puzzled Pete. "No, nothing out of the ordinary." "Why? What happened?" "Wait, no, is my wife a suspect?" Someone then took Justin from Deborah's arms and then carried him outside to a black station wagon. Pete's legs wobbled, then he ran to the door. "That's it? Stop!" One by one, the responders climbed into their vehicles and crept down the street. No lights, no sirens, just silence. Pete stood motionless in the doorway. He turned and stared at Deborah, who stared at nothing. "What can I say? What do we do now? Are we supposed to follow them?" Pete wanted to regain some sense of control. He started to tell his wife he was sorry, but the words stuck in his throat. Deborah stretched out her hand, but she couldn't reach Pete. "God, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you warn me?" Pete's shoulders sagged. He had done nothing wrong, but he felt he hadn't done something right. "I should have known, but how could I, God? You didn't say anything." Pete did what he had to do. He cooked dinner, he ate a little, and washed dishes. He tried to sleep. 5 days after Justin died, Pete went back to work. 4 years later, he and Deborah had gone their different directions. His life was destroyed. Pete's past seemed surreal. Now, under the Hawaii sun 25 years later, Pete was calling out to God. He said, "Do you know who I am?" Pete didn't wait for an answer. He dropped the machete and sank to his knees. "Can this please be over?" he sobbed. He lifted his arms in surrender, and in that moment, Pete felt God lift the weight of his guilt and anger. After decades of running from his pain, for the first time, Pete felt at peace. Hebrews 4:16 says, "So let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive His mercy and we will find grace to help us when we need it most." Maybe you've wondered if God knows, if He cares. Even when you think God doesn't see you, you can come to Him for help.
Thank you for listening to today's story. Every day of the year, our hope is to inspire you with real-life stories of faithful men who have gone before us. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." Join us tomorrow for another story at 365christianmen.com.